Now we move further. So you had cleared the 24th and 25th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now has been cleared. Now what happens? Government also bring the 29th Constitutional Amendment Act. Government also bring the 29th Constitutional Amendment Act. What is this 29th Constitutional Amendment Act? I had already told you by the first Constitutional Amendment Act, 31B was added. What was 31? 31B introduced the Schedule 9. And what it states that if any law put in the Schedule 9, then it is outside of the purview of court of law. ठीक है, तो ये उसकी जुडिशियल स्क्रूटनी से बाहर हो जाता है. तो नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस here a law comes that is related to the Kerala land reform. It has been put in the Schedule 9. At that time, there are certain state laws that completely club together and put in the Schedule 9 to give him इम्यूनिटी फ्रॉम द स्क्रूटिनी ऑफ द कोर्ट्स. ठीक है, सो ये चल ही रहा था उस टाइम पे. कई सारे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स के जो लॉज आ रहे थे जो रिलेटेड टू लैंड रिफॉर्म थे, तो दे ऑल आर क्लब्ड एंड पुट इन द शेड्यूल 9 टू एस्केप फ्रॉम द जुडिशियल स्क्रूटिनी ऑफ द कोर्ट्स. ठीक है, so now what happened in the article 29 constitutional amendment act? This law also has been put in the schedule 9. Now what happens? A gentleman who was sent from the Kerala. His name was. So now, if he is related to the religious activities, so he has, according to the 26 जो आपको अपनी जो रिलीजियस प्रॉपर्टीज है उनको मैनेज कर. The Kerala government tries to this person, this gentleman. Now what happens? Which have been brought by the and 24th and 25th. So Amendment Act, 25th Constitutional Amendment Act, all these are challenged in the Kesvanand Bharati state of Kerala. But backdrop of these constitutional amendment acts which have this constitutional amendment act neutralize the impact. Constitutional amendment act tries to enforce the and the 29th constitutional amendment act which has put the amendments have been challenged in the Kesvanand Bharati versus state of Kerala. Here the Supreme Court. What is this unique stand that will lead to the emergence of which is a great discovery of the Indian Supreme Court. Now what have been challenged? So here the Supreme Court takes a very unique. It says that okay, according to Article 368 of the Constitution, any part of the Constitution. This power is and one is के पास होती ही होती है। ऑर्डिनरी लॉ, everywhere the legislature enjoy. So now the Supreme Court says that I have no issue from the Article 368 to amend the Constitution. In the Golaknath case, the Parliament has already said that the Parliament cannot amend any part of the rights. You cannot touch any part of the Constitution. So here, sorry, the Supreme Court has adopted the middle part. Okay, I have no issue part of the Constitution by the Article 3. What is here disclaimer? The Supreme Court has said that there are certain fundamental principle, basic principle on which the to these principle are called the basic principle of doctrine is called the doctrine of basic. The Supreme Court has said that there is no power according to the Article 368 of amending the Constitution because the Constitution is a living. We have said that the Constitution should be changed according to the pupils according to the time. So it should but here on the principle at which the Constitution should not be compromised. It means that it remain intact. So this structure and this interpretation becomes that this principle is the basic principle of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will each now what the evolution of the doctrine of basic structure to that of course Parliament has the amendment. It can amend the any part of the Constitution, including not breach the fundamental principle and on which the Constitution has stood. If these principles will be snatched, then it will be of the Constitution itself. Then it will no longer forefathers had drafted. It will be the this is called the doctrine of basic structure, which case. So it is doctrine of basic important doctrines and it has Supreme Court in many judgments and one of the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act which the 2014 or 15 to the introduction of national judicial appointment been struck down by the Supreme Court due to the that was the independency of judiciary. So in the trajectory or the destiny of Indian politics becomes very landmark in the history of Indian. Further, a little bit I will discuss more. And now this. Now what happens? I am now depart Please pay your attention. Here, the general election took place. Took place. Finished the doctrine of basic structure in the judgment to the case Vernon Bharti judgment. You know basic structure, but I am now. Please pay your attention here. It is also the very important doctrine of basic structure. Now, what happens in the 19th in Mrs. Indira Gandhi contest the election and his rival candidate was Raj Narayan. So Raj Narayan he won the election. Now is the candidature of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Raj Narayan challenged the candidature of Indira Gandhi. What happens on the 12th June 1975? Allahabad High Court verdict comes. The verdict is that Gandhi. Indira Gandhi and Mrs. Indira Gandhi to contest for next 6 years. She cannot contest the election. Now what happened? Now what very important here you have to understand to the very dark period of the Indian democratic history. June 1975, Indira Gandhi invoked the emergency. And what is emergency? Political opponents imprisoned in the jail, suspended, the censorship on the press. So these all emergency. It means the all democratic emergency and the most that this was the introduction act during the period of emergency. So you legitimacy of this constitutional amendment act because in the jail during this period. Now what happens in the August 1975? This parliament and what happens according to minister the election of these offices and dispute related to these offices become outside the purview of Constitutional Amendment Act. The Vice President, Prime Minister, and Speaker are from the. Now, who will hear the electoral So now this amendment clearly states decided by the parliament. It will appoint a committee who will investigate, who will decide on. Now what happens? This 39 constitution has been challenged in the Supreme in November 1975 is known as Indira Nehru Gandhi versus Raj Narayan. That has been struck down. And the basic principle that is doctrine because it bars violation of the basic structure, which was a doctrine of under the Amendment Act has been struck down in the November. But the candidature of Indira Gandhi says that the candidature is legitimate. It is not the violation of the not the Supreme Court legitimizes the candidature of Constitutional Amendment Act, which brought the Vice President, Prime Minister, and Speaker from the court of law. So now it has been struck down. It is the again the symbol of doctrine of basic structure. Indian Constitution from how we were evolved from this journey. Now, what happens? We discuss now more in the next lectures various judgment. So now we will topics here. You have to revise it, and I will share all the you have